Hello and welcome to Go, my favorite sports team. I am Markiplier, this is Tyler, and we are going to guide you into the world of sports in all of its forms and factors. If you're tuning into this and you're not really a sports fan, too bad, you're trapped. It's like a black hole. You're in the event horizon of knowing sports. And who's the master of holes? That guy.
That's me, master of balls and holes.
If you weren't watching the video, he pointed to himself and winked at the camera.
Did I wink?
Yeah, then he whipped his dick out.
Holy shit.
Gonna have to go to the video and check to see if I'm lying. Anyway, today is a good day because for the first time, Tyler and I are in the same room again.
That was a dream.
Well, we were gonna, but the other chair, spin your camera around, point it, is the other chair even still there on the other side?
I have the other chairs, hold on.
You gotta tune in on Spotify if you want to see it.
There's your chair.
So we were gonna do this in person again, now that I'm back in LA and the majority of the movie work is now done and I can get back into the swing of things. But some of the hardware is broken, we gotta order some new stuff and we'll get back in there soon. But it's pretty crazy because we had a realization that we've actually never done one of the official ever since going video on Spotify episodes in that room. You know, the studio that was purpose made for Go. Yeah, haven't had an actual episode over there.
Oh, I'm short now.
No, that's not how it works. Even though the internet thinks that's how it works, it's not how it works. Tilt it down, you can do it. You got to tilt it down a little bit.
Too much.
No, that's perfect. It's fine. Now that Mr. Perfectionist is done. So, we were gonna be there, and we haven't done an actual episode of Go since we went video only in that space, which is hilarious.
Because we literally set it up for that purpose as well.
And I've just been so busy with this stupid movie that just hasn't happened. But now I'm home. Yippee! Yippee!
I was hoping there would be, the audience would be clapping, and then I realized there's nobody here but us right now.
Anyway, how are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm getting back into the swing of things. I've been walking every day, which has been wild. Getting my 10,000 steps.
It's wild.
Well, I've been getting my 10,000 steps in one entire walk. So it's like, that's the wild part is I'm walking 10,000 plus steps on one walk as opposed to, doing it casually throughout the day.
Yeah, why not? Then you'll have bonus steps the rest of the day. That sounds good.
Yeah. So pretty much around 7 o'clock in the evening, I go out for my long excursion. And after doing it for 6 days straight, I have my shins are starting to hurt on my left leg.
We are getting older after all. It's a damn shame. I plugged in my e-bike.
Yeah?
Yeah, I did. I actually did. It's so crazy about how my life went. Like the pause button of my life got pressed right before the movie started because there's a perfect time capsule of all the things that I was doing. And even though I have technically been home since this started, I feel like I haven't actually been home for a very long time because I had to stop learning Korean. I was so busy. I wasn't riding my bike everywhere anymore. I wasn't going anywhere.
You weren't sleeping.
I wasn't sleeping. I unless it was to get on a plane to go do something else for this big dumb movie, then there wasn't anything left to do about it. But now I'm back and I'm like, there was so much dust on my bike. And it wasn't dust. It was tree jizz.
What?
Pollen.
Oh.
Pollen.
When I thought tree jizz, for whatever reason, I thought you parked your tree under a really sappy pine tree and it was just coated in sap.
No, not like that. It was pollen. Yes. So there was very thick layer of pollen. And I was about to hit it with the hose. And then I remembered it's an e-bike and there's wires and shit.
I'm pretty sure they're contained. It's not like if you threw it in a pool, it'd be a problem, but I think spraying it down would have been fine.
Yeah, technically they're supposed to be able to go through puddles and splash, but I actually started hosing it down. It's not, I didn't have that thought before I started hosing it down, and then I realized, gulp, there's a lot of power in this thing. And also I haven't plugged it in like a year, so who knows what those batteries were doing. But I turned it on and it seemed fine. It was perfectly good.
You take it for a spin?
I did a little. I looked up with batteries. You probably shouldn't like run them super hard right away or try to charge them. So what I'm doing is I'm leaving the lights on overnight and I'm letting it discharge a bit. So I'm gonna let it very gently go down. and then I'll charge it to full, and then I'll go, because I just don't want any, with the amount of time, the batteries, I don't really know if this is the right way, but I looked up some cursory examples. You know, I Googled it, and Google told me that I should stick a screwdriver in the batteries and wiggle it around a little bit. But, you know, then I didn't trust that, and I decided against it.
Was it the Google AI or was it?
Yeah. Well, he's my friend, and I assume everything that he says is true and great. So, you know, he would never betray me, right?
Yeah, AI would never want to destroy humans. That's never been a thing.
What's the most hilarious bad result you've gotten from Googling on Google nowadays?
What is the most recent one? I can't remember what it was. I was Googling something sports related and it told me something wrong.
I got a sports-related one for you. According to Google, a dog named Pospisil was drafted as a 4th-round pick and went on to play 63 games for the Calgary Flames, scoring 8 goals. He spent the 23-24 season with the Flames. The article that was drawn up by Google said NHL to host first Stanley Pup Rescue Dog competition, and somehow it got a dog named Popsicle played 63 games for the Calgary Flames.
There's an interesting one where it said parachutes are no more effective than backpacks.
Yeah, absolutely. We all know this. Also, you should eat at least one small rock a day, according to the Google AI.
Oh, nice. We're like birds.
They're an important source of vitamins and minerals, and so you could have several servings of gravel, geodes, or pebbles. You can hide them in food like ice cream or peanut butter. Running with scissors has health benefits. A cardio exercise that can increase your heart rate and require concentration and focus. That it would. If you didn't know, Google is destroying themselves with this AI.
Their market share has dropped for the first time in like, I don't know, a crazy like 50-year span, I think it is.
Yeah, since they basically started it.
And Bing has risen almost equivalent, the same amount as they have dropped, which is wild.
Yeah, because what we're seeing nowadays, and I know this isn't anything to do with sports, but just as a slight anecdote, what I think we're seeing nowadays is because all these other companies are like rushing in to do this kind of things. And I think what they're discovering is that there is diminishing returns to this current method of machine learning and how they're doing. When you just dump a bunch of data into a neural network and it goes like a wood chipper and it crunches all the data, there is technically an upper limit of how sophisticated it can get without having some kind of intervention of being a design system in one way or another. And so when you have that, you start to get, you know, inconsistent results. Whereas if it's not building off of like what OpenAI does, which is like they build off of the previously trained versions of it before, and they've done multiple iterations. So they've already have like 5 years of backlog to work off of it, and some probably ill-reputable places of which they got their information, because now data and their sources are going to be pretty important, and trying to make sure that people aren't stealing data, you know, that is, well, not that they've ever cared about that before, but yeah, I think we're starting to see where some of these things go wrong. Speaking
of which, the AT&T data breach that happened recently, there was another data breach that happened more recently that I can't remember what company it was, but it got me thinking about like how identity protection services are only identity monitoring. None of it actively goes and tries to prevent any stealing to happen. It's just like, oh, something's happening. Like, you'd think that these programs nowadays, with how sophisticated technology has become, that it would be able to try and seek out that information and find ways to start wiping it, at least not all of it, but parts of it where it's like really vulnerable. And it's fascinating to me that those organizations don't exist. It's just like, we're just going to monitor it.
Because yeah, why would they? It's the whole adage of like, you could just archive everything, you know, all the time. Why not? Who knows what it's going to be? All these companies are like the hoarders of data, and they don't even know where data would be useful, when data would be useful. But now that finally there's an outlet, like, we knew it. Yes, dump data into the wood grinder. You know, now that's there. But yeah, there's no policy, and now there never will be a policy of like deleting things or anything like that. And so,
well, on top of that, litigation out there doesn't even punish companies enough for having those data exposures come to light.
No one gets punished anymore.
Yeah.
No one at all. No one gets punished anymore. It's the strangest thing. No one's going to jail anymore. Well, not the people that should. Like the heads of these organizations that are actually doing all the actual crimes. No one's going to jail anymore.
Meanwhile, we're all yelling, the data's being saved in China, TikTok ban, but data's being leaked and sold on the black web and affecting citizens of the world from companies every single day based in the United States. And they all seem to be protected instead of being in trouble for it by just meeting the minimum requirements for protecting said data.
Anyway, that's not sport related. We're here to talk about sports. And we always started off with some jacuzzas from our lovely patrons of the subreddit, the most elegant subredditors in the world.
Do we do that first now, or do we do the news first?
Do you have news? Yeah, go for news.
All right, well, I got news, and you're going to like this news. Tom Brady.
Oh, shit.
Has been officially inducted into the Patriots Hall of Fame. And just for you, Mark, just for you, I wanted to share with you this glorious speech this man gave that I appreciate. I think it's a great speech. I still think he's overrated, but that's a different story.
Whatever makes them happy makes me happy. I would encourage everyone to play football for the simple reason that it is hard. It's hard when you're young to wake up in the off season at 6 a.m. to go train and work out, knowing that all your friends are sleeping in and eating pancakes. It's hard when you're on your way to practice, weighed down with all your gear, and it's 90 degrees out and all the other kids are at the pool or at the beach, and your body is already completely exhausted from workouts in 2 days. It's hard to throw, catch, block, and tackle and hit kids when they're way bigger and way more developed than you, only to go home that night bruised and battered and strained, but knowing you have to show up again the next day for just the chance to try again. But understand this, life is hard. No matter who you are,
this is my favorite part
there
of the
are
speech.
Bumps and hits and bruises along the way. And my advice is to prepare yourself, because football lessons teach us that success and achievement come from overcoming adversity, and that team accomplishment far exceeds anyone's individual goals.
Silliness. The individual over everything. You carry the team on your back. He's being humble. He was the only person playing on the field when he was playing football. Let's be perfectly honest. Without him, everyone would crumble.
No. But he goes on to talk about, like, life is hard. You don't have to be exceptional. You don't have to be gifted. What you have to do is have the willpower, determination, and motivation to just keep striving and pushing forward when nobody else is doing that, to work harder than anybody else, focus. It's literally the same thing that Kobe Bryant instilled, and it's really a really great lesson in life in and of itself. If you want to achieve something, you have to do the things other people aren't willing to do. And by doing that, it's usually by working the extra bit. It's about doing the extra things that nobody else notices. It's about working in the quiet space without reaping and being like, look at me, I'm working hard, but just doing it to get better each and every day.
That is absolutely false. I don't believe in that at all. It's about being born a god. I came out the womb divine, and the world was blessed the day that I emerged. My own existence. Anyway.
You went back in time and created your own birth, like Fry from Futurama.
Exactly. And the exact circumstances that I did it are true. Anyway, well, that's good that whatever his name is got inducted into the Cleveland Browns, whatever, yada, yada. No one cares. He's old hat. He's gone. He's basically dead.
He talked about coming out of retirement again, in all fairness, but...
No.
That's what I say. No, he needs to stay retired.
I mean, he's... how old is he now?
He's 46, yeah.
46, yeah. I'd say that when you're on the closer end, a rounding error away from being in your 50s, because he's closer to his 50s than his 40s.
Yeah.
No, he's in his 40s. He's closer to his 50s now. I'd say, yeah, maybe hang it up. I know that, people are living healthier lives longer, but that might be a little much.
George Blanda played until he was 48, so he didn't quite meet the oldest NFL player ever. By the way, this is from the AI overview, so it may be inaccurate, but
Google. Yeah, it's impossible to get away from now. I don't know how they keep they keep doing it because it keeps spitting out information that they know is probably going to be wrong, but they're just counting on the idea, well, like, but most of the time it'll be right. I don't know if you can rely on that. I don't know if that's criminally dismissible of being almost always right, you know, especially for information that people are trying to like use in their day-to-day life. But what do we know? Quick jacuzzi's ghosts in my body. K-Dog618 said, this is not really a jacuzzi, but more like a situation that I think needs to be addressed. Jacuzzi, do not start a conversation by asking if they finger sports. Turns out, like Tyler said to try, I'm not able to rewind time to try again, so now my friend thinks I finger sports, and the awkward silence was loud. Eventually, they hit me with a, what did you say? And I had to go on to explain about gmfst to them, and then they told me they would give it a listen. So in the end, it paid off. But I feel real awkward there for a minute. So Tyler, how dare you?
Listen, the ends justified the means. It resulted in exactly what we wanted to happen and exactly what you wanted to happen as an elegant listener.
Is that the kind of reputation that we need in this podcast? Is that the kind of smut that we're going to put out there? We're here to teach people about sports and the entire world of sports, and they're going to start it off by jamming their fingers in whatever hole they can.
I never said jamming fingers in the hole. It's the you're sporting the merch that say I finger sports. It's the chant of our listeners, the I finger sport.
All right, well, if you go out there and ask random strangers on the streets if they finger sports, you might not get the same result as this conversation, but just beware, life is ours to choose, and you have free will, and life's hard. Life's hard when all those other kids are out there eating pancakes, and you're waking up to fingering sports twice a day, then you are gonna be a winner.
Yep, that's exactly it.
So we have Jacuzzi, major points left out of the Is Dating a Sport episode. I'm catching up, forgive me. From Cynic Walnut. How can you possibly talk about the competition of dating and not bring up the absolute insanity that is the mating displays in the animal kingdom? Are we not but animals ourselves? We put on our fanciest clothes, brightly colored and distracting plumage. We bring gifts, penguins and on their pebbles, and sometimes we get into fights over love pretty much everywhere in the world. Dating is life or death in the animal kingdom, and what greater sport is there than the sport of survival? Please bring up this year-old episode so that I may feel validation.
Sounds like we need a Is Dating a Sport in the Animal Kingdom episode.
That's animals! They can't play sports! They're not sophisticated enough!
That's not true! There are dog sports and there are horse sports.
No, they're not the ones playing it.
You tell the horses that, because they definitely play. When it comes to polo, when it comes to racing, when it comes to dressage.
It's just a fancy ball. They're just a four-legged ball. That's all they are.
Dog jumping.
They're a tool.
The dog racing. You literally set up a dog course for Chica. You know the dog sports.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, no, and she did not do it. Let me tell you, she didn't accomplish nothing.
That's because Chica didn't want to play in the sport.
Or if we're going down this road, is the water in a pool playing a sport?
That's an inanimate object.
You're riding the water. You ride a horse. It's not that they're doing the sport.
Do we truly know scientifically that these animals aren't as coherent as us? We only can study it and compare it to our brains.
They're not making rules. You made up the rules about sports, and there has to be an understanding for them to know that the system is fair, but they are being used. They don't have a fighting chance. They don't have a sporting chance.
I think some animals, horses in particular, and horse racing have shown the fact that they know they're racing.
Listen, Seabiscuit was a movie. Is that the name of the horse movie?
That's one of the horse movies, yeah.
It was just a movie. Just because it looked the other horse in the eye and was like, I'm gonna win. That doesn't make it true. It's a movie.
But there have been instances shown in real life of animals knowing the stakes.
Yeah, right. Okay. But cheerleading is not a sport. You heard it here first, everybody.
I didn't say that. We said competitive cheerleading is a sport.
Cheerleaders are lower than animals in Tyler's rankings. It goes Tom Brady.
No.
Horses.
No.
Soccer players.
No.
and then cheerleaders.
No.
Oh, and then the water in a pool, and then cheerleaders.
No.
That's the ranking.
People pee in the water in a pool.
That, according to Tyler, that's what makes you it better than cheerleaders.
No.
For some reason, I think it's weird, but he's saying it.
I said competitive cheerleading is a sport. I just don't think it should be called cheerleading. I think it should be the true epitome of what team gymnastics is, because team gymnastics is an artificial team in which individuals compete and earn a score where they virtually work together as a team. They don't actually coordinate and hold each other and launch each other like competitive cheerleaders. So to me, competitive cheerleading is team gymnastics. The rest of it is individual gymnastics. And then the cheerleading on the side of like the stadium is what cheerleading is, because you're just leading the crowd in a cheer to support the other sport that's happening.
I'm going to be honest with you. I wasn't listening to anything you said. I was in another universe. I was gone.
Was it the water universe?
It wasn't at all. Go, Sir Purge. Jacuzzes are over. If you want to put in your jacuzzi, go to reddit.com/r/gmfst, or just go to Reddit and search gmfst. You don't have to type in the URL, because if you're on the app, you wouldn't know how to do that in the first place. But please get some electronic literacy. Know how it works. One of these computers is screaming at me. Shut up.
It at least has electronic literacy.
Yeah, it does. I know how you work. Shush, shush you. They've been running pretty much nonstop since I got back home. I got these for cheap.
Yeah?
Yeah, Dell has an outlet store. Dell, sponsor me again. I wronged you last time or something. I was once sponsored by Dell. Once upon a time.
You were?
Yeah, I had Alienware. They're owned by Dell. So I was like, please, Dell, sponsor me again. I would love more cheap computers for my render farm.
Are you going to be like, just don't send me the desk again?
Not the desk. Yeah, not the desk. Please, not the desk. The desk. Oh, such a cool desk. But honestly, wow, not practical.
For what you need, not practical.
The image of that desk in my home, which I am not a flashy YouTuber. I don't know where they got the idea that I was. That big blue vibrant desk sitting in my tiny little dining area.
It looks so out of place in the video.
With the lights that never turn off. Why are you so, shut up! The reason why it was cheap. What was I saying? Please sponsor me. And Tyler, throw him a bone here. Anyway, Tyler, close your eyes. I'm doing this episode, by the way.
All right, my eyes are closed.
I want you to imagine something. 1979. 50,000 fans running, screaming in terror. Explosions rocket through the night. Shards of vinyl spraying in every direction. Ah, my hip! Ah! Ah! Tearing up the turf. Everyone going in every direction. Comiskey Park gets turned into a practical war zone. Over $250,000 in damages, which could have bought thousands of new disco records, luxury turntables, even dozens of brand new cars. Anywhere between 0 to 30 people were injured, and the second game that was going to happen of the doubleheader was forfeited because the field was left in ruins. I'm going to tell you the story of Disco Demolition Night.
Disco, what?
Yeah, have you heard of Disco Demolition Night?
Is this Demolition Derby monster trucks?
No, it's a baseball game.
I have not heard of this. Am I allowed to open my eyes?
You can open your eyes. Yeah, sorry, you were channeling the listeners out there.
I have not heard of this story.
All right, so I want you to put yourself in the mind of 1979. What's going on in 1979?
1979. Well, it's the late 70s.
Good, very good, very good. Yeah.
There's a war happening.
Sure.
Was that the Vietnam War?
I'm going to our reporter in the field to check when the Vietnam War... No, it was over by then.
Dang it.
1975.
1975. Okay, 79, 79. There wasn't a war happening. Except for the war on drugs.
That hadn't started yet.
Gosh darn it.
Yeah, no, it was a time of peace. But what were people listening to in this time of peace?
Disco music.
Disco was crushing it. I do believe that disco is more known to be in the 80s, but because you didn't see nothing. You didn't see shit. You didn't see nothing. Nothing happened. You don't comment on it. Don't say anything. Anyway, no. Disco actually was from 1970 to 1980. It was just like nonstop disco. Everyone loved disco. I always thought it was 80s. I thought, this is 80s night. Oh, what a night. Not disco. Do I not know disco?
That sounds like disco, but now I'm confused about another thing.
Oh, is it not 80s night? Is it ladies night?
It's ladies
Hold
night.
on a second.
Did you say 80s night? I didn't even notice because I know the song.
Have I always heard that from like some radio show modifying the song to be like this is 80s? Oh no! This is 80s night. Is that not it? Is that not it?
It's ladies' night. It's always been ladies' night.
Oh no. Anyway, whatever. The event known as Disco Demolition Night took place on July 12th, 1979. But leading up to it were the events that would lead to the devastation and damage that occurred on the field of Comiskey Park in Chicago, Illinois. So, for some reason, Wikipedia lists the coordinates of this. I don't know why. But for those who wanted to know what the coordinates are, it's 41 degrees, 49 minutes, 56 seconds north, 87 degrees, 38 minutes, 00 west, 00 seconds west. If people didn't know, if you're looking at coordinates, it's degrees, minutes, seconds. I don't know why. I might also be wrong. I thought Ladies' Night was 80s night. So what the fuck do I know? There's a certain disc jockey, or as he was called in the article, a shock jock, right? I got to look up what the actual difference between a shock jock is a radio broadcaster or DJ who entertains listeners and attracts attention using humor and or melodramatic exaggeration that may offend some portion of his listening audience. I realize I am the definition of a shock jock. I started this off with talking about how my bike was covered in tree jizz. I'm pretty sure I offended some people. You love to finger holes. I'm pretty sure that offends some people.
We're both shock jocks.
But anyway, Steve Dahl was the promoter of this event because Dahl, who was a shock jock at WLUP 97.9 FM, hated disco. He hated it.
Oh.
Hated disco. For some reason, he couldn't get by it. Everyone wanted him to play it on the radio. He was a huge anti-disco dude. And this was right about the time when disco would have been dying out if it was only in the 70s and died out in the early 80s. So he came up with an idea because he was also a sport fan. And his radio station was partnered, or at least I think they were partnered, with the Chicago... it's not Bears. Oh, no, it's not Bears.
There are two baseball teams. This makes it harder.
No, what?
Yeah, there are two Chicago-based teams.
It's the Cubs.
Wrong.
Why is it not the Cubs?
Because it's at Comiskey Park, which is not Wrigley Field.
What's the difference? Why does anyone care? Who cares?
Everyone in Chicago, any baseball fan who cares.
Oh, no one lives in Chicago.
One's in the National League, one's in the American League.
That doesn't make any sense. They're in the same city. How does that make any sense?
Because they don't want them to be playing in the same league, so there's potential for that city to have them face off against each other in the World Series.
Whatever. Okay, Steve Dahl. Did you say the name of the team?
They're the Chicago White Sox.
White Sox, right. Okay. Who stole the name from the Cincinnati Red Stockings?
No, that would be the Boston Red Sox that stole the name from the Red Stockings.
It's fine. Not the point. So Dahl came up with this idea, which is honestly awesome. The idea was that if you bought a ticket for the game on July 12th, it was a doubleheader. I don't know, did that mean two games in the same night?
Yes.
The tickets were 98 cents, but only 98 cents if you turned in a disco record. If you brought a disco vinyl that you had and you turned it in, you would get a ticket for 98 cents.
You brought a record that was disco music, and it had to be disco music. They'd give you a cheaper ticket.
Yes, they would. And also, they would throw it in the pile. Now, what's going to happen with that pile? I'm not going to spoil just yet, but it has something. Let me give you a sense of it. Editors, help me out. I don't want any like visuals to that, just like enhance the audio so it sounded better, right? And then a crowd like screaming. Okay.
No video over Mark's face, but put video over my face.
But small in the corner. Make it tiny so you don't have to do anything specific. All right. So White Sox officials. Here it says White Sox. Could have read down a little bit. I didn't. Whatever. Oh, it says it at the top too. Oh, shit.
You really do need Google AI, man.
No, they would mess this up. I'm just reading Wikipedia. I read through it before. I didn't pay attention to that. Anyway, so the White Sox officials had hoped for a crowd of 20,000 people, right? Which would be about 5,000 more than usual. And I don't know how big this stadium is, especially back then. Maybe they expanded or something like that. They got 50,000 people. And I don't know how many people this stadium can hold, but it said it was entirely packed because more people continued to sneak into the stadium. Now, here's the thing. This is saying that thousands of people snuck in. And I don't know if that's 1,000 people in a line doing like a Pink Panther ass, in through the side door. I don't know how you sneak 1,000 people into somewhere during a game. Must have been really exciting or no one looking, but they continued to sneak in after capacity was reached and the gates were closed. So this was already a stressful situation. This was like a pressure cooker ready to blow. There's too many people in this place, all chucking way too many vinyl discs into the pile so that it can be blown up.
Speaking of which, the capacity for that stadium is just shy of 45,000 people.
Okay, 45,000 people, they got 50,000, and then they stopped counting after it was over capacity. Many of the records were not collected by staff and were thrown like flying discs from the stands. Everyone just like who snuck in up top. And I don't know if you know a vinyl disc. Those things are not light. Those things they're not super sharp, but thrown with enough speed, I can imagine that might do some damage.
They're basically, grinder blades?
Yes, of course I know grinder blades. Yes, absolutely. Oh, who doesn't know grinder blades? This guy thinking I don't know grinder blades.
What are those specific like saw blades? They're basically the same. They're not the same material, but they're the same kind of density.
Yeah. Something like that.
To like be able to cut stuff. So they're like giant throwing ninja discs.
More analogies.
They're like frisbees, but not bent and more sharp.
More.
They're like flying saucers through the sky, abducting people out of the stadium and becoming entranced inside the disco ball of the moon.
Wow, that's incredible. Okay, anyway, the second game was already initially postponed, just because it was getting too crazy in there. There were so many people. Everyone was going like out of their seats. People were not coordinated right. People were jamming in. People couldn't get out. It was already getting a little crazy. But according to the event coordinators, not a bad thing. Not a bad thing at all. Everything is fine. There's nothing wrong here.
It's because the event coordinators were only leasing the venue. They didn't own it.
And also, they hadn't done what they set out to do. Remember, Dahl said, quote, this was a night, it was a war. He described it as a war dedicated to the eradication of the dreaded musical disease known as disco.
How many of those records do you think people stole?
Stole?
Like they're not their records. They're like, oh, I'm tired of my neighbor playing the disco music. I'm going to break in and take their disc.
Right. Just, I thought you meant like people were going into the pile being like, hey, free record.
Free disco. There was that one guy who was in the pile when everything went down.
There were multiple events that Dahl went around the city. He would take over discotheques. He would take over record stores. He would say on the radio, being like, we're going here, we're taking out, because he literally wanted to get rid of disco. And it probably was mostly a bit, but it also probably was absolutely not a bit, because he even urged listeners to throw marshmallows at a promotional van in a shopping mall where a teen disco had been built. So that's cool and normal.
He's attacking the teens with marshmallows?
Yeah, and so the co-hos chased the van and driver and cornered them in a park. The situation ended without violence, thankfully, but, super normal to chase a van down to a park. Very cool.
I have a question. Does it actually say co-hos or is it co-hosts?
The co-hos. Co-hos is the kind of organization that he put together to be the army. So it's like the Insane Coho Lips is an anti-disco army consisting of his listeners. So they call them the Cohos. It's a terrible name.
It's a horrible name. Did they have a symbol like it was Darth Maul's lightsaber, but it was just gardening hose on each end? They're just whipping it around?
No, it was not like that at all. So Dahl's kind of a dick, right? There was a disco star. His name is Van McCoy. He died suddenly July 6th. The event took place on July 12th. And, you know, you would think that it'd be like, oh, man, disco star passed away. Let's try to be respectful. Nah, Dahl, he commemorated the death by destroying one of his records live on air.
Yeah.
You know, consistent.
He's consistent, but that's also like, read the room, man.
No, it's his room. He doesn't have to read it. He can't read. All of this to say that there was already a fervor of a little bit intensity leading up to the night.
You could say there was some disco fever.
No, yes, maybe, yes, no. Shut up. I think yes. Yeah, you could call that. The previous night's attendance for this was 15,000 people. More than 50,000 were there. No one really knows how many. They hired only enough security for 35,000 people that night.
They were very much overwhelmed. And also, security mathematically is never truly a science when it comes to events. So they assumed they had enough for that. But usually that means they had way less than was truly needed anyway.
There were not only the 50,000 people inside, but there were still 20,000 more people that wanted to get in outside of the building.
Did they have their discs?
Everyone has their discs, because when you came to the park, you were supposed to drop your records into a large box, which was about 4 feet by 6 feet by 5 feet tall, which, if you're doing math in your head, is about a comparative to the TARDIS. Bigger. No, sorry, not at all the TARDIS. Okay, because the TARDIS is bigger on the inside. No, 2 TARDI, 4 TARDI.
You could just say phone booth.
4 TARDI, 1.5 TARDI by 2 TARDI. This is Tarduses.
Tarduses?
What's the plural of TARDIS?
TARDISes.
Yes, yes. So now that everyone has a perfect idea of what that is, that was the box that they were dumping records into. Not small.
Also not that big.
Okay, all right. How big a box you got?
Refrigerator box is bigger than that.
No, it's not. That's only 1 TARDIS.
A refrigerator's bigger than a TARDIS. It's like 1.5.
A refrigerator's big. What refrigerator? What cavernous, mammoth cave-ass refrigerator do you have that is bigger than the TARDIS?
The one from Bob's fridge that flooded his yard.
You don't have his. Why would you have his?
Because it's 1979 and that's what they do.
You weren't even born.
Refrigerators were bigger back then.
Samsung probably wasn't even making refrigerators back then.
I don't think Bob's fridge was Samsung.
Well, if you could tell me what brand it is, then you would be able to make me believe that you actually know that it's any bigger.
Frigidaire.
That might be true. Anyway, it was overflowing, so all the people brought their discs to their seats. First game was supposed to begin at 6 p.m. CDT. There's a lot of people on TikTok that are talking about which is the sexiest time zone. They're not saying that. No, not at all. But which is the best, right? And I think we can all agree Mountain is the worst.
Yeah, because you're at elevation. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm just saying time zone.
Oh, yeah.
Of Pacific, Central, and Eastern.
Oh, if we're talking just U.S., yeah.
Who cares, right? They don't get anything. They're not Pacific. Central, always gets mentioned with Eastern. Eastern is 7 Eastern, 6 Central. Anyway, whatever, it don't matter.
Yeah, because broadcasting, because Chicago actually officially adopted the fact that they're on Eastern time and not Central time.
Oh.
So like the media capitals of the United States are on the West Coast and the East Coast time zones specifically, but they say Central because Chicago is considered one of the broadcast zones, but Chicago broadcasting follows Eastern time, but they mention Central because they have to acknowledge their own city. Fair
enough. Kind of weird, but kind of cool, I guess. Yeah, not bad. Maybe I should spend some time in Chicago. Everyone always talks about it.
Every time I've been to Chicago, it's been awful. I want somebody to take me there that will make me actually enjoy Chicago. Maybe we should just go to...
Let's buy Chicago.
How much do you think Chicago costs?
Probably not that much. Anyway, 6 p.m. First game was set to begin. Second game to follow. Lorelei, a model who did public appearances for WLUP, was a popular in Chicago that summer for her sexually provocative poses in the station's advertisement. I don't know. She threw out the first pitch. I couldn't tell where this was going. I was just reading.
She laid elegantly and got her photo taken in the piles of records covering her bosoms.
But the reason I bring this up is because as they were starting the game, discs were already flying through the air. Fans from all the way up top were chucking discs down. Fans right up on the field were chucking discs in. Everyone was saying to each other who was playing the game, "Dear Lord, wear your helmet at all times." Quote, "It wasn't just one, it was many. Oh God Almighty, I've never seen anything so dangerous in my life."
In all fairness, it was the White Sox versus the Detroit Tigers. Chicago and Detroit, two cities that are used to significant violence at that time.
Absolutely. That excuses it. It also excuses the firecrackers they were throwing, the empty liquor bottles, and lighters. So they were just
lighter.
They were hoping that, you know, it would all mix as it landed and one would catch one on fire and then it would build itself into a Molotov cocktail. There's so much going on. It'll random chance will happen.
Spontaneous combustion.
Yes. So the game was obviously stopped several times because of the rain of foreign objects. Dozens of hand-painted banners, such as slogans as "Disco Sucks," were hung from the ballpark seating decks. White Sox broadcaster Harry Carey saw groups of music fans wandering the stands. Others sat intently in their seats, awaiting the explosion. So all this is building up to why this is called Disco Demolition Night.
Are they doing that on the field? Is there any protection to protect the field? Who thought this was a great idea?
I'll tell you
who approved this.
Dahl and his co-host. Dahl and the co-host. What was even his first name? I can't even remember. Steve Dahl. Steve Dahl and the co-host thought it was the best idea ever. At 8:40 p.m. Central Time, Dahl, dressed in army fatigues and a helmet, emerged onto the playing surface together with Meyer and Lorelei. Meyer, who knows? Who cares? Doesn't matter.
That's his sidekick, Gary Meyer.
They circled the field in a Jeep. They were just...
They really embodied the war on disco with war paraphernalia.
Yes, they were full on war. They were showered, according to Dahl, lovingly by his troops with firecrackers and beer, and then they proceeded to center field where the box containing the records was brought and awaited, rigged with explosives.
Oh my God. Back in 1979, that was probably like standard black powder TNT.
I don't have too much detail of the exact explosives. I'll build up to it and we'll see how big it is, right?
We need a little foreplay before the explosion.
It's worth noting that, like I said, a lot of people were sneaking in. A lot of people were waiting outside. A lot of people wanted to get in. So they padlocked all of the gates.
Oh, no. 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 No, not one of these. No.
They padlocked all but one of the gates.
Jesus Christ.
All but one. So it's cool. It's chill.
No.
Then Dahl grabs a microphone. This is full on, like, you know, Batman when, you know, Bane talking to the football field. He told the crowd, "This is now officially the world's largest anti-disco rally. Now listen, we took all the disco records you brought tonight, we got them in a giant box, and we're gonna blow them up real good." Then Dahl set off the explosives, destroying the records and tearing an enormous hole in the outfield grass.
That's why I was worried about the field.
The resulting explosion blasted shrapnels of vinyl up into the nosebleed section.
Oh my God! He set off a giant claymore of vinyl records.
And not only that, it was also now on fire. So the giant box had exploded and spread shrapnel all over the field, completely covering it, and it was also on fire. So vinyl, it doesn't exactly burn very well, but it smokes up really nicely. So when it's on fire, it likes to melt and make this really acrid plastic burning smoke,
which is toxic.
Oh, back then there was they didn't know what toxicity was in the 70s. What are you talking about? So you would think that, you know, at this time people would like panic and run away. Nope. 5,000 to 7,000 attendees rushed the field. They thought that this was the perfect time
to party.
And they rushed the field. Some climbed the foul poles. Others set records more on fire. Others just started grabbing fistfuls of grass and just throwing them up in the air like, yeah, wee! There was a batting cage got destroyed, bases were pulled up, stolen. Among those taking the field, apparently, was Michael Clark Duncan, the actor. He slid into third base just for fun, had a silver belt buckle stolen, and went home with a bat from the dugout. All in all, just pretty good.
Cause it's almost 80s night.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's feeling right.
So years later, Lorelai, you remember, making sexually provocative first pitches, remembers being grabbed by two bodyguards who placed her in the Jeep, and then the Jeep tried to navigate its way through the crowds to get out of the stadium and into the surrounding streets, to the delight of many co-hosts outside who suddenly recognized the occupants and had heard the explosion. It was like, "Hey, Lorelai!" And then started chasing the Jeep down the street. All of this while there was constant people on the PA system always telling people, "Please return to your seats." The entire time Take Me Out to the Ball Game was being played over the speakers.
Take me out. Buy me some Cracker Jacks.
I don't care if I never come back.
Oh, light on fire.
At 9:08, and remember at 8:40 is when, a few minutes before the explosion happened. 9:08, Chicago police arrived in riot gear, much to the applause of baseball fans. They were just cheering on everything. They were having the best time. This might have been the best night of some baseball fans' lives, as far as they know.
Except for the Chicago White Sox lost the first game of the doubleheader, so they were...
Damn. The people on the field dispersed after the police arrived. 39 people were arrested for disorderly conduct. Estimates of injuries range from none to over 30. I don't know how you get none in there, because there's no way it was none. There's zero chance that none got injured. They wanted to play the second game, but the field was so badly torn up that umpiring chief crew Dave Phillips felt that it was still not playable. Even after the White Sox groundkeepers spent an hour clearing away debris, which is that's really optimistic of them to believe that after the explosion and rampaging fans who were just ripping up handfuls of stuff, tons of stuff stolen, they didn't have any bases anymore. They all got stolen. Even the fifth base got stolen. And so, there was nothing there. The second game got forfeited. Here's an interesting thing about baseball. They argued under baseball's rules, a game can only be postponed due to an act of God, and that as the home team, the White Sox were responsible for the field conditions. So the next day, they forfeited the second game to the Tigers 9-0. So White Sox lost twice. Once for being bad, and the other for not an act of God. An act of man.
Being bad and then being stupid.
Being bad and then being stupid, and they failed to provide acceptable playing conditions. Which apparently that rule is when you forfeit, you lose 9-0.
Yeah, 1 run per inning.
Oh, that makes perfect sense.
I wanted to look up who this Lorelai was. Apparently it's Lorelai Shark.
Hello, Lorelai.
There you go. For people who want to know who Lorelai was.
All right. Now everyone's curiosity is sated. Anyway, day after the event, Dahl began his regular morning broadcast by reading the indignant headlines in the local papers, of which he mocked. He said, quote, "I think for the most part, everything was wonderful. Some maniac co-host got wild, went down on the field, which you shouldn't have done. Bad little co-host," end quote. That's part of the quote. Tigers manager Anderson said, quote, "Beer and baseball go together. They have for years. But I think those kids were doing things other than beer."
I think they were smoking vinyl, man.
I meant everyone was smoking vinyl that way. So a columnist of the Chicago Tribune said, "It would have happened any place 50,000 teenagers got together on a sultry summer night with beer and reefer. This wouldn't have happened if they had country and western night," said Rich Wortham. Which is just such a good opinion to button that whole event.
They would have just been line dancing,
This wouldn't have happened. You're right, it wouldn't have, because 50,000 people would not have been there.
Back then, probably for country, yeah.
That is the story of Disco Demolition Night.
What a glorious, horrible event at a sports venue.
I'm stunned no one died.
It's 1979. They could sweep dead people under the field. You got to remember, the 90s were different. The 70s were even differenter.
Yeah. And just to show you a picture of what the field was looking like, I'm sure you've seen pictures or, events where people charge the field. That's a lot of people. That's a ton of people that are just hanging out in the field.
I was at fireworks night at Dodger Stadium, and they let people go onto the field for the fireworks. They keep them off the actual like infield. This is about the same amount of people that they let go out into the outfield.
Oh, cool.
But that's very orderly, and they let them in, and the security people are watching them the whole time. I think people regularly try to make the next MLB All-Star on the field, but that's a different story. I really wish I want to see the giant hole in the field.
It's probably not that big. I might be exaggerating it.
I mean, it's enough to be treacherous to play on. What I haven't told you is the first time I tore my right knee up was in baseball tryouts on a baseball field, and my foot went into a hole in the outfield, which caused my knee to hyperextend, which caused my injury.
I've found footage of Disco Demolition Night. As you can see, this is post-explosion, and there's a lovely bonfire where they're taking the rest of the pieces of vinyl and burning them to nothingness so that disco can never, ever plague our great nation again. There's a sign saying, please return your seats.
It's the Soxogram. Yeah. Mark, that was a great episode. I never thought I'd be talking about Chicago's Disco Destruction Night ever in my life.
Yes, it's something that I wanted to bring to the podcast a bit more, but only if people liked it. If people want to hear more stories of fun sporting events throughout history, of which there are tons and tons, this is just one of many. I would love to do a bit more research into that and try to dig deeper. Maybe both of us could, and then tell you some fun tales in the world of history, world of sports, and how sports integrates into even deeper parts of our lives, like the banishment of disco.
Yeah, I mean, we are going to be talking about the story of the 1904 Olympics, which were historically tragic. So that's going to be really fun to talk about. But we'll be talking about that coming up pretty soon because the Olympics are coming up pretty soon. Thank you, Mark, for bringing that wonderful tale to my ears and my eyes and to the audiences. I think everybody loves it when you hijack an episode and come up with something yourself. And I think this was a great, wonderful time.
Let me know in the subreddit if you want more of this. We can do tons more. There's an infinite number of stories that need to be told.
And also, there are lots and lots of merch items for you to go and buy at store.gmfst.com. And by a lot, there's 2 items you can get, but you could buy a lot of them. So there are a lot available. You can finger sports with your hats. You can throw a hat into the ring by getting your iFinger Sports hat right now on store.gmfst.com. But we're going to get going so that we can take care of some other stuff. You have a wonderful day, night, whatever it is for you, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.